Hello, and welcome once again to the new, updated, and improved Roundtable, your weekly podcast from the publishers and editors of The American Mind. I'm your host, Spencer Clavin, associate editor of the Claremont Review of Books and editor especial de la mente americana. I am joined this week by publisher and president Ryan Williams and by our occasional welcome guest, Matt Peterson. So we previewed a little bit last week that we are going to be switching things up here at The American Mind just a bit. The major kind of headline of this is that we want to bring you more Roundtable. Moar, the people crave Moar. And in addition to that, a lot of podcasts that are similar to ours have been adding like a paid tier for paid subscribers. So we decided we're going to be doing the same thing. This is part of a package called Claremont Digital Plus. You can get it by going over to our Substack, and we'll drop the link in the description of this episode. But just go on Substack and look for the Claremont Institute, where you can pay a really, I must say, quite modest fee, $40 a year, which is less than a lot of Substacks. And you get a bunch of extra content, not just for The American Mind and our podcast, but also for the other podcasts that we do, The Close Read, the Claremont Review of Books. And on top of that, you get some extra articles from the editors of CRB and a variety of other goodies. So this is kind of an all-inclusive suite of offerings. And the part of it that comes from the Roundtable is going to be an extra episode every week. So if you want to support us and you want to help keep the show, keep our lights on, keep us in ring lights and microphones, you can subscribe to do that. If you don't, and you've just been a loyal listener all this time for free, and you want to keep reloading, you are more than welcome to do that. We cherish all of our listeners, and we're going to keep doing these free episodes every week. We are going to try out a slightly different format for them, which is to say, we're going to open up with a little bit more of a freewheeling kind of conversation about the news of the week in general, rather than slicing and dicing into three specific topics. We always joke that the best part of the show is before we turn the mics on, when we're kind of just hitting each other and talking about what's going on. And so we want to actually try to just turn the mics on for that part of it, rather than doing quite such a formal structure. And then we will deep dive into a particular topic every week. So you will notice that this is a slightly shorter episode for the weekly free. And then there's extra content for the paid subscribers. But hopefully we will also be letting you free subscribers in on a little bit more of the fun stuff. So with that having been said, I think this is a perfect opportunity to kick this off, because I know that the guys are chomping at the bit to get on my case over my execrable, vile opinions. Ray, Bad Bunny. I was going to try to say his actual name, but I'm realizing I don't know it. Did you guys watch the Super Bowl, let alone the halftime show? It was kind of a dud of a game.
I did watch the whole thing. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. What did you think of the actual play?
Well, it was a bit boring for 3 quarters or so. Because you had at a certain point, Amelia and I were wondering, is this game going to end 12-0 Seattle with just field goals? It's what it was trending towards. It would have been close to that, but for some desperate play from the young quarterback of the Patriots, who ended up turning the ball over and making it a little more exciting. I mean, it was just good football. It shows that Seattle kind of hit its stride at the perfect time this season.
No touchdowns would have been a first time in Super Bowl history?
Correct. That is right. Yeah. So, I don't know. The football was fine. I mean, Seattle had an impressive defensive performance. And my joke lately has just been, I don't have much love for either the Seahawks or the Patriots, like most of the rest of America, maybe especially the Patriots outside of Massachusetts. So I was quoting Kissinger about the Iran-Iraq war and hoping that they could both lose. But
I know it was really hard to get excited about either of these teams. Obviously, longtime listeners to the show know that I root for the Tennessee Titans as a form of self-harm, because I feel that I require penance for my sins. But so I've been long out of the game.
You have here the king of self-harm in football with us, Matt Peterson.
Oh, good point.
Bills fan.
Yeah. All right.
I'm sorry, that's not self-harm. That is the passive virtue.
It's fidelity, which always comes with grief.
Suffering can be offered up in an efficacious way.
It's redemptive.
The game was pretty bad. I think it's pretty bad. Like you were saying, the field goals. Some gal tweeted, which is your favorite field goal so far? Uh, I watched the both halftime shows. I flipped back and forth between them.
Some men just want to watch their Twitter feed burn, and I am one of them. So I was watching mostly the Bad Bunny one. I mean, we should set this up a little bit. This guy, this guy has bad politics. I think it's fair to say. He's a Puerto Rican pop star, huge Puerto Rican pop star. Um, Sings mostly in Spanish. Did the entire show in Spanish. Has been making all manner of anti-ICE and anti-Trump, and I would even say anti-America having borders kind of statements in the press. This is another political choice by the NFL. And one of the things they do that I think is really clever is they pick people whose persona is inherently political, and then they kind of tell them to tone down the politics clearly or to make the politics covert. And so, my case for the Bad Bunny, you'll notice, by the way, if you go on the offending Twitter thread that I wrote about this, that I never said I liked the show. And in fact, personally, I can't listen to more than 15 seconds of Bad Bunny without getting a toothache. But those first 15 seconds are always kind of like catchy, and then it gets to be a bit like listening to a jackhammer. But I did think I had to hand it to him. I thought it was kind of a work of lefty genius. I mean, the guy, you think about this guy going up at a moment when Trump is suffering in the polls over ICE and Minneapolis and all the stuff we've been talking about on the show. And this guy's objective is to make open borders and the sort of globalization of America, especially all of the Americas in one, right? He's there to make that look cool. And specifically, his task is to associate radical leftism with vigorous normalcy again, because the right has completely owned heterosexuality and vitality and joy, and this is something that they tried to kind of claw back with Kamala to zero effect, with like deep kind of astroturfing. This, on the other hand, I thought was a very carefully produced for TV display of, uh, all the joy is on our side. They had an actual straight marriage at the center of the whole thing, and it just makes us look like we're taking our ball and going home when we do this like peripheral sideshow with Kid Rock. I mean, am I wrong about this? Like, it seems like a bad look for us.
Well, I think first off, on the visuals, I agree with you. I thought it was going to be a dumber fu to America. It's just what you'd expect, right? I mean, given what they've done in the past. But they didn't do that, and I think you're right. I mean, it was surprisingly tame, right? He wasn't wearing a dress and doing his gender fluid stuff. Besides some, old school crotch grabbing, and sexual lyrics you couldn't actually translate. You didn't actually know if you didn't know Spanish. Otherwise, more people would have been appalled. But
People were mad about the Spanish, but less able to be
right,
mad.
right, and there's nothing like that warms the heart of a boomer or someone who's very empathetic about immigration than hearing the Spanish language. Like, oh, look at their culture.
Yes, exactly.
Hilariously racist in their way. It's so cute. But you're right. I mean, I think it was, and it was positive. Like, that's the big thing to me. It was bright colors and it was positive. So he said, "God bless America," of course, meaning all the Americas. But he said, "God bless it," right? And there's an actual wedding, and it was very, very upbeat and positive. So it was actually, yes, a brilliant piece of propaganda. Still, ultimately, a large fu to over half the country. And then on the other side, TPUSA, God bless them. I think they proved the concept, because this is near and dear, right? That's what Matthew Marsden and myself have been talking about this for like 10 years, like doing this, an alternative halftime show and alternative Oscars. So TPUSA, God bless them, did it. So I think they proved the concept, given that they had enough people that certainly for streams on the internet, that's a significant amount of people. Not going to be the same as a Super Bowl watch worldwide, but they did it. So that's good. So I don't want to rip on them for doing it. I think it's good. On the other hand, it was just a concert. It's like a country music concert, basically. And there were some poignant moments, but I don't think it ultimately was like the replacement for a Super Bowl halftime show.
Okay, wait a minute. I thought this was going to be Matt and Ryan gang up on Spencer Day. Is this actually Matt and Spencer gang up on Ryan Day? Let's go.
Maybe. I mean, I don't want to. I'm not ripping on what they did. It's just I think it should be very very different. And if you mean, it sounds like what you're saying is what I do believe, like that was effective propaganda, even though it was an fu to half of America. So
Yeah, they're still better at it than we are. That was the main point. I mean, I said it because it was Twitter. I said it in a maximally aggressive way, and I pissed a bunch of people off, which I like, fine. But basically what I'm saying is there's the left still has much better and more sophisticated instincts when they execute on this stuff than we do, even though we're right and they're wrong. No, Ryan?
Yeah. No, I think that's right.
You guys promised you were going to attack me. We had a whole group chat where you said that you were going to come for me.
Well, look, I've thought about it more and slept on it, and I think you're mostly right. I think Trump's denunciation of it missed the mark. I think it would have been better if he just stayed aloof and kind of dismissed it instead of getting indignant about you can't understand a word he's saying, which I agree with. I mean, that's one of my main complaints. But it was a celebration and spectacle of the new multicultural America. So in that sense, it made perfect sense. The NFL is also trying to expand its international footprint. So I think at least competing with their let's get somewhat political guys, but get them to tone it down was also their desire to grab new audiences, including in Latin America. So I think it was effective for the NFL for that reason. But, I'm sort of disappointed in all the critics and the cheerleaders on the right. Trump didn't really do it that elegantly. He just seemed kind of ranty about it. And then all the usual suspects who were praising it were all the milquetoast lame GOP consultants and a few political figures from the last 20 years or so.
You did get a lot of this is exquisite, which is also not the move, right? There's a lot of kind of falling off over this. A vigorous celebration of, right.
Gramsciulescent.
And it was the most made for TV one that we've ever seen, though.
100%. That was very interesting.
Somebody had the camera angle from field level, and they're like, this is what it looked like on the field. It's just a bunch of people trees and glimpses of people, inside the set. So they all saw it on the Jumbotron.
The Dr. Seussian frond people that were prancing around. Yeah. From
leading to all the Lord of the Rings jokes about the trees to all the Shakespeare references about the trees.
Yeah.
So let me, I think you're right. We're all too much in agreement. So I'm going to throw, let me throw one. I think that we are speaking at, an elite level in a way about this. Right. And so production wise, just let me say that. Yeah. That tight shot the entire time. You could see that the Snoop Dogg one, they kind of wanted to do that where they had all these sets that you'd come in on tighter. Remember when,
oh yeah.
My wife was complaining, can't we just go back to something we all agree with, like Snoop Dogg?
Right. Unoffensive, uncontroversial, an all-American hero.
30-year-old rap that everyone likes.
Right.
Those sets, you could tell they wanted to come in tight on, but this was just they want to do that, the vibe of that one long, one long commercial following them around, which was great for TV. I will say this though. I asked my son, because a lot of the kids at his, fancy school aren't as political as I would expect them to be at all. And they were just kind of hanging out, and I don't think they had any idea about, Bad Bunny and the controversy. And I'm so what do you guys think of this halftime? And he was just it was just lame. Everyone just said it was stupid. I'm why? And he said this without any, none of these words are trigger words for them, He's well, I mean, first off, no one knows who Bad Bunny is, so you can't sing along. And, except for a few people who might know Spanish, you can't understand what he's saying. He's I'm taking Spanish. I can't understand what he's saying. And it was just it was kind of random and dumb.
Yeah, I don't teach you those words in Spanish class. It's not Senorita Consuela is not going to be
And at the end, he was oh yeah. And also it wasn't American. The Super Bowl should be American. and so I don't think that And I don't think that was based on like some, reading any commentary. I think it was just kind of like, why are we doing this international stuff? And it wasn't, it was, it's just a fact. That was weird. So I don't think for the normie it really hit. Now, of course, he is my son. So
Exactly. How normie can Matthew Peterson's son ever really be? Sorry if you're listening.
did you guys notice that well, go ahead, but we should talk about the memes that the effectiveness of this and activating our like old friends who are libs, right?
Yes. Well, it's also, in addition to being made for TV, is really made for clips on social media and for memes, which is, like important. But to just respond to your son's point about the Super Bowl should be American, goddamn it, like that's obviously true, right? We should say, or I should maybe say, because I've been giving people shtick about this, that like the people who say that it's an affront to the country to have this anti-American kind of like globalist singing in Spanish at the halftime show are completely correct. Like just on principle, that is obviously true. It in actual fact, you know, London has fallen long ago, right? Like that ship has sailed, and the towers of the Sauron the Wise has abandoned reason for madness. Like we are way past that point. So, but it is the case that when you zoom out and you think like this is ridiculous, and this guy, I mean, the God Bless America thing, this is, I think, the biggest stroke of genius, and maybe gets at the point I'm trying to make, is that right? It was brilliant. It was the most brilliant part of the performance, and also the most evil part of the performance, because he goes, "God bless America" is the only thing he says in English, and all these boomers, like you say, Matt, who are watching, oh, their culture is so nice, like their culture is all American, and they have like they do each other's nails, and they have family, and they sleep on chairs at weddings, like all these people that are watching, and look, like he really is an assimilationist, like he believes in the melting pot. He says, "God bless America," and then he says, Ecuador and Colombia and Canada and all these other countries, basically implying that America, as the United States, has no right to exist, is this one portion of a giant continuum. And so, like, on the one hand, that is proof that all the critics are correct. On the other hand, it's also proof that I'm correct. Like, it was done in a way that was so artful as to both dog whistle to the haters of America and come across as like a sop to the boomers. But the other thing that you raised, which is I think maybe more on the nose, is Bad Bunny already cringe? Like he is a big pop star, but I think he kind of had his moment, maybe, and that's just I guess for the kids to determine. But maybe that's probably.
And to be fair, I mean, the Super Bowl, I mean, it certainly has London rockers on it, but they don't talk about countries. They just sing rock and roll back in the day, and then also, I mean, it usually is pretty washed up people anyway. But I don't know, Ryan. Like, I think like Trump's comments would have fit if he had given the real finger, outright, instead of this move that was ingenious in its way. But the ranting about it in the way he did, it's like, well, that's not what people actually saw. And I don't know about you guys, but everyone seems to have the same experience I've had, where what's going on right now is an activation of like a BLM, beyond BLM levels, of all these people who are, white squishes, kind of, ambivalent, like go back and forth on MAGA, and they are up in arms. I've seen it in many different groups where they are absolutely, everyone's a fascist who's MAGA. Nuremberg trials are going to happen. And these are like normal people. They're not Antifa members or whatever. This just activated them to the heavens. And, I think having an alternative is a good idea. I think they proved the concept, TPOSA, and kudos to them for that. But, of course, Kid Rock is someone who's trotted out every time you need someone who's right wing at a concert. And he did some great stuff. I don't think it was without his moments. You could complain about, but it was not a sufficient response to the level of deal that they had culturally. And so everyone just doubled down. And, I don't know. The Super Bowl halftime show, though, to me has always been kind of a trap because of the dynamics that you mentioned. It's always like they're trying to bait Red America. And the sad thing is, when you saw Roger Goodell hug him afterwards, if you saw that video after he got done, and came inside, it was just like, man, these people, this is a bad scene.
It was a celebration and spectacle, a demographically sectarian appeal to a certain portion of the country, and then dressed in the garb, as you say, Spencer, somewhat subversively of no borders, no human is illegal. Can't we all just be one happy beige brown family across the Americas? So it was deeply un-American in that sense, but pretty subtle.
It's skin suitery at its finest, no doubt. And this is their most effective skin suit that they have seized is the Super Bowl, because it's the freaking Super Bowl, right? Like, I mean, I want to return to Matt's point a little bit, and maybe this can get us into we should talk about California as well, which is the radicalization of the normie left. Part of me just feels like I'm learning that the average American voter operates in a state of directionless global hysteria. Like the sort of default is there is a terrible atrocity going on, and it's our job to take to the streets to prevent it. And really, it's just a question of effective demagoguery, which direction that hysteria gets pointed. Like, is it they're transing the kids, or is it ISIS fascist? I mean, we would like to think that one of those points of view is correct while the other one is false, and that's what makes the difference. But increasingly, I wonder if it's simply like competing shadow plays, because now we've got it does seem like they're doing BLM again with this ICE stuff in Minneapolis, and like a lot of the normies who were maybe winnable for Trump or are starting to, I don't know, go in for this thing that, like, deportation is evil, or the way that they're doing deportation is evil. And meanwhile, Ryan sent us this thread about how California is like actually expropriating its citizens at this point. This is we've talked a little bit, I think, about the wealth tax, but this is a guy called Sightbringer, the prophet. Here is the bare truth. California is entering the seizure phase of the wealth cycle. The productive core has thinned, the debt load is locked, the spending base cannot shrink without civil fracture. The only lever left is the static pool of accumulated capital that remains geographically or legally tethered. That tether becomes the target. The comment on this from Balaji, another Twitter account person with a Twitter account that we often follow, is that like all of these CEOs have left. Zuck, Brin, Thiel, Elon, right, have departed from California. Mostly just following the three of us. I think we're just the trendsetters in this respect. But like, I mean, you do get the impression. I guess the theme of this question that I have for you guys is like, is the left gathering its forces? Like, is Mordor on the march again? I should stop referring to Lord of the Rings because it's so corny. But like, is there a darkness gathering in the West with all of this stuff?
Well, California continues its decline, and this seems. I'm not quite sure what the thought. Well, I am sure what the thought process is. It's classic liberal entitlement. They think California is so magnificent that they can pursue wealth billionaire taxes, and then as the Post points out, millionaires are coming next. They had some motions towards it in 2020 to start taxing the millionaires. So they're chasing the dragon in California tax revenue wise, and I guess they assumed that only so many people would actually get up and leave. I mean, California's been notorious for years. If you move out of it, I have not experienced this yet. Inshallah, may I not. But they will hound you out of the state and try to assert that you're actually still living there and still owe them taxes for years after you've left. And I know one prominent millionaire who had this, centimillionaire who had this experience of, a year or two, maybe he was like 5 years out of California, and they sent him a tax bill, and he asked his accountant, what can I do about this? Let's sue them. And the accountant and the lawyer said, well, there's good news and bad news. The good news is they only looked back 5 years. The bad news is if you challenge this, you're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you probably will end up losing. So you should just pay it. And he ended up paying it. It was, $1.4 million in back taxes. And I think that was his tribute cost to be finally done with California. So that will continue, and it's a demonstration of California's desperation and their incipient authoritarianism that they conduct themselves this way. So the question would be, what does this doom loop look like with revenue and spending and all the rest in California? As we've argued, and Matt has argued longer than me, he used to be in the thick of investigating this sort of stuff. California has been functionally insolvent for at least a decade. The question is, when does the toll finally chime for California's disaster? And maybe it'll be sooner than they had hoped. So in that sense, this seems short-sighted, and if it's utterly predictable at the same time.
Yeah, we should note our friend and colleague Michael Anton loves to say this to people as well, that they're just going to take your stuff. They're just going to take your stuff, and people would say, "Oh, well, I can stay here and weather it through." And the problem is, they don't stop, right? There's no limit to progressivism here, and they'll just keep going. And so if you don't leave, eventually they will come for you. They'll come for take your stuff. They won't let your kids in college, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, this is, it's interesting how this is playing out with the tech overlords, right? I mean, you got Cernovich out there just angering everyone in tech by being his grumpy self and telling them all, like, I don't feel sorry for you. You all caused this, and F you. I don't think that's the right approach. I think there were people who were they had day jobs and they were slow to wake up to this, but he does have a point, and I think many people in tech realize that. I mean, David Sachs, for instance, took a similar approach. He didn't say F you to everyone in tech like Cerno, which is ridiculous. You need them in the coalition. They're a very important part of it. And they're doing great stuff, the right, kind of tech people. But Sachs said the same thing, like, you guys caused this and now you're going to leave. And it was absolutely predictable. They were not going to stop. They were going to come after just expropriating wealth. And that's what they're doing. And I note that a lot of people, who are friends there after the election, they felt a little better about life, which is understandable. And now everyone's sort of realizing, like, the election alone doesn't solve a damn thing. It doesn't solve, what needs to be done in the administration. It doesn't solve, it doesn't tamp down on the other side and at all, unless we take these actions. The administration is doing some of that, but California is just going to get worse, and that's the way it is. And they're going to, they'll continue to persecute people. They'll continue to come after wealth. There's no conception of, I really loved it when they put out the billionaire tax, and which is absolutely ridiculous, in so many ways, and unjust. And they put this out, billionaires tax, we're going to tax them. And you got these responses from some of these business guys, and they were the most naive, like, Boy Scoutish thing I've ever seen in my life. They're like, "Whoa, but let me explain how this works. This doesn't make any sense, because someone will have, they don't even have any money, but they have, the ownership in this company, and this will decrease innovation." You're sitting there like, "Oh, you sweet summer child."
Right. Let me point to the chart. I have charts, please. Like,
You could explain the economics of this to these people, like, they do not care at all. And my point would be, look at CalPERS. Like, there's a guy on the board of CalPERS, which has, I don't know, like $500 billion that they invest for the state, right? And on the board, the big board, one of the guys, his resume is, 30 years a mob boss for the AFL-CIO in LA. What do you think he learned about, managing, $500 billion in that job? Absolutely nothing about finance, my friends, but he doesn't need to know anything about finance. He needs to know friends and enemies, and he knows that very well. And that's welcome to the Thunderdome,
yeah, okay. So this is getting at, like, what I was trying to gesture at with my inept Lord of the Rings references. It turns out I'm better at Dune than I am at Lord of the Rings. But what I was trying to get at is, Matt, what I think you are trying to get at too, which is, okay, look, we won like a big election, right? In a big way. And it was an actual victory. Nobody can accuse anybody on this podcast of not having duly celebrated. We took several victory laps. Like, we did not go immediately into Doomersville right after the big Trump landslide. But it's been, more than a year now, and we always knew that the left was going to, like, shake itself off and regroup. And, like, when they do, there was all this talk, all this Ezra Klein level nonsense about, yeah, we're going to really moderate. We're going to go back to kind of sound economic policy and we're going to have abundance. Yeah, bro. Like, it's going to be great. Like, the blue dog Democrats are back, baby. Like get after it, son. And, you know, you heard it here first. It is impossible for them to, it is structurally impossible for them to do that. Like, it is just baked into the actual makeup of the Democrat Party. There are path dependencies like a mile deep here. Besides which, every major player involved has already committed himself to woke maximalism on camera at some point during the fervor of 2020. And it's really, really hard to walk that back without implicitly condemning yourself for being the evil anti whatever racist that you accuse everyone else of being. And so instead, what they're going to do is they're going to bad bunificate the Democrat Party, bad bunitudinize the Democrat Party, and they're going to go whole hog on this, but put like vigorous, fun, dancing face in front of it, and they're going to get better at doing that than they were on short notice with Kamala. And meanwhile, they're literally going to take your stuff, like as you say, Matt, and as Anton is always stressing. It does not that they does not care that this is perhaps unconstitutional, that this will ultimately drive the state into the ground, that it will immiserate innumerable people, that you can't just tax wealth into existence. Like, none of the things that you could explain with charts and careful white papers and, like, delicate sort of subtle arguments, none of that is going to matter. Even, like, God bless him, Thomas Sowell is not going to explain to these people in plain terms why they are wrong, because they want to be wrong from our perspective. The thing that they are doing is the point. And so, yeah, like, you've got this going on in California. I heard, I don't know if this is true, but because the Super Bowl itself took place in San Francisco, I heard that the players, having spent more than 8 days in California, lost money from the Super Bowl because they overstayed the amount of time that they have to be there to get, like, then you get a chunk of your income taken out proportional to California's income tax, and it wiped out the bonus that they were getting paid to play in the Super Bowl. Our listeners are going to have to fact check me on this, but because I was just at lunch with some Google bros and they were like telling me all about how insane this was. And in fact, like, all of that is by design. Like, that's the program. So it does seem as if Trump is a little bit, or like Trump world is needing to find its footing a little bit more. And maybe it'll just, like, I hate to say this, maybe it'll just be a shellacking in the midterm that kind of brings people back around to getting serious or something. I don't know.
Well, two things quick. I'm curious what you guys think about that last larger point. But it strikes me like the analogy is, it's like you're running a 7-Eleven and a bunch of thugs come in with guns and they're going to rob the 7-Eleven and take your money. And you're like, guys, wait a minute. This doesn't even make sense. Like, if you just worked here at the 7-Eleven, you would make more money over time. And it doesn't matter because they're like, I want money for crack now. I mean, they don't care at all. That's not the point. And that's kind of the dynamic you see over and over again, playing out. But this point about the left putting on the face or the facade, like in the Super Bowl, is positive. What they did is they had a positive vision. So someone like, oh, it was pro-family and it was this and that. So they presented a positive and a happy vision, which was, I think, the smart part about it. It was like, bright, boisterous, and the game is like, we are the side of love. We're good, love, not hate, and all these Orwellian slogans. But so I do think that there is a problem on the right of what are we fighting for, where there needs to be a positive vision that comes across, the golden age vibe. That is a good one. That's a winner. And talking about things in positive terms, and then remaining very strong on deportation and everything else, but painting this more positive vision. And I think that that's waned a little bit, over the last few months, as because we did, or at least the administration seemed to want to go. We got to go head toe to toe with the left, but you got to do both things. You got to project the positive vision you're fighting for, and that I think is needs to return. I believe it will before the midterms, but I don't know. It might be too late for the midterms. But there's still 3 years, which is an eternity left. There should be no blackpilling.
Yes, no, right. But what's that thing about if you're having fun, you're winning?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, there's a certain part of me that thinks if Gavin Newsom were truly ambitious, he would have spent his last term moving heaven and earth, leaving aside whether he could actually do it for coalitional reasons in California and ideological reasons mixed in, but trying to bring California slightly back to what it was in its heyday, that is the late 80s and 90s, which is a middle class paradise. To the extent that he could transform his party sufficiently to be the avatar for that sort of prosperous California and to truly be the abundance Democrat, that's the pathway to real supermajority status. However, it seems that a good portion of the left, Newsom included, and Whitmer's similarly positioned, she's been very quiet about all this ICE stuff, pretty much silent about it because she's trying to toe the middle road. But I think they assume that like in 2016 in Hillary, they're on the cusp of permanent rule or something close to it because of the demographic transformation of the country and the voting habits of said demographics. So I think they can ride this out, and eventually they're going to have their way, even in California, because they're going to have their way nationally. That seems to be the calculus. And the great test of American self-government will be whether they're right about that and who stands in their way. Trump has made 2 valiant efforts to stand in their way, but we're coming up on a midterm that may put the final nail in that coffin. Not to bring us back to doomerism, but this seems to be the plan.
Yeah, I think like there's now more of a vibe. Like you can see what the fight is going to look like now. I think a little bit more, which is not the same thing as doomerism. It just means that Matt was kind of saying in an election, whoever is having fun is probably winning, and that seems like something we've got to work to get back, just on a vibes level, not to resurrect that tired idea, but we should not close out this altogether before producer Ryan shows up with a giant like foam hand telling me that I have to be dragged off the stage. He might actually come into my studio with a candy cane and yank me off the podcast. But we shouldn't close without giving a shout out to our boy Jeremy Carl, senior fellow of the Claremont Institute, decorated scholar, I think it's fair to say, and a friend of all of ours, who has been nominated by Donald Trump for a major position at the State Department and is now up, obviously, for Senate confirmation, and drew the fire of none other than one Chuck Schumer. I was saying before we started recording, like, I'm not convinced that one is always over the target when one is taking flack, but when one is taking flack from Chuck Schumer, that's a bullseye, baby. So we should just say Jeremy made a beautiful response in the replies to Schumer's accusation that he's a racist and a white supremacist. And he not only forthrightly denies that, but demonstrates why Schumer is a toad and is clearly speaking out of both sides of his mouth. As I look at it right now, Jeremy's reply has 1.5 thousand likes and Chuck Schumer's has 1.3 thousand. So that is officially a ratio. But you can do your part to make it a mega ratio, to make it a nuclear ratio by checking him out at Real Jeremy Carl. And we should all hope that he gets confirmed with all due expediency.
And I'll clarify for our State Department nerds, this is an important position for those that know it. Just go do a little research about what it oversees, but we want to get it right. He's up for Assistant Secretary of State for International Organizations, which is at a nexus of what has for a long time been the American left's exportation of its pathologies abroad at various NGO level, et cetera. So kind of USAID territory in many ways.
Yeah, and who better than Mr. Carl for that post? All right, this is it. I can feel the candy cane is actually coming off screen. You can't quite see it yet, but producer Ryan is about to pile drive me onto the floor if I don't wrap this podcast up. This was a lot of fun. Welcome to the new and improved Roundtable, and this doesn't have to be the end for you folks, because there is more at Claremont Digital when you sign up to become a paid subscriber and support us. We will always be coming to you weekly with one free episode, of course, and we're very grateful for all of our listeners. But if you want more, Ryan and I are going to do a little deep dive into AI sentience, which is a buzzy topic that's been getting particular attention lately. An article in Nature claiming that the bots are already alive. So we're going to pick that apart a little bit over on the paid episode. And if you want to hear that, go check out the link in the description of this episode, of this podcast episode. But with that, thank you very much for listening to the Roundtable. If you want to know more besides the paid episode about all of our stuff, you can go to our websites at AmericanMind.org, ClaremontReviewofBooks.com, and our DC-based Center for the American Way of Life at dc.claremont.org. You can donate to support the show and the Institute at claremont.org/donate. And thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, share, subscribe, let people know about the show. Thanks to our producer, Ryan, who's coming in now actually with just a giant burlap sack to carry me away in. It's a pleasure.
He's
as
dressed
always.
like a tree.
It's really President Burlingame when Burnham Wood comes to
Let me
Dunsinane.
say quick before he comes. I mean, the great thing about the Super Bowl was the Patriots lost. As a Bills fan, that was gratifying for them to be exposed on national TV as the fakers that they are. And white pill at the very end here for me. Even though only 13%, there was a 13% decrease in the overall audience for the Super Bowl.
There you go.
On Sunday, which is understandable given the teams that were playing. But for the Super Bowl performance, there was a 39% decrease in the audience compared to Kendrick Lamar last year.
Dang. All right. I'm wrong about everything. This was a disaster for the left, and Bad Bunny sucks. See you all next week.